In this episode of The Squad Room, the legendary, the influential, the amazing Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman is with us to share with us his tips, tactics, and strategies for leading a successful career, how we can protect our communities, and what he sees as the future of law enforcement. Stay with us.
You are a warrior.
321 status.
What kind of vehicle is it?
You are the very best your nation has to offer.
911.
Multiple shots fired.
They're asking you to lead.
5. We need a Bearcat.
It's up to us.
So 133. I need somebody that's got a visual on where the shooter is.
You must be sound in mind, body, and spirit.
40 feet, where's the officer down? I have a rescue helicopter that wants to land and help.
This is the podcast that will make you the one.
Copy running eastbound.
The one that will bring everyone back.
Trouble, we have shots fired. Give me backup now.
Because no one else is coming.
We're going to have an officer shot, 100 block of East Street.
Suspect is down.
This is The Squad Room.
Hello, everybody. This is The Squad Room, the podcast about navigating the challenging terrain of our demanding careers as law enforcement professionals. My name is Garrett Tesla. I'm an active duty sergeant for a sheriff's office in Southern California, and I'm here to help you learn tactics and strategies for taking care of yourself, your family, and your community. This episode you're about to listen to is a rebroadcast of a previous episode that I think needs to be heard by as many people as possible. I've selected 10 of my favorite older episodes that have some vital information for you. I often get messages from people asking for a particular guest, and I'd like to say that at least half the time, that person has already been on the show. So I think our show today will have some great information for you that will help you lead a happy, healthy, and successful life filled with purpose. Before we get to the interview, I want to remind you that you can get more information on this episode, including the show notes and links, by going to thesquadroom.net. You can also subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and all the others, and follow me on Instagram and Twitter at thesquadroom. If you want to find ways how you can help support the show and save yourself a few bucks in the process, I'll explain more of that at the end of the episode, or you can head over to thesquadroom.net/support. I also want to thank our sponsors for this episode, ProForce. If you're in charge of maintaining or replacing your agency's firearms or have a hand in that decision-making process, I want you to pay close attention for just a minute. ProForce is the largest firearms distributor on the West Coast and the only taser distributor in the West. ProForce is known among Southern California and Arizona cops for their great deals on firearms, holsters, and accessories, but what a lot of people don't know is that they also do agency sales, and they are responsible for firearms procurement for some of the largest departments in the United States. Their business is helping agencies replace their aging firearms with modern equipment at the best prices available, and they understand that the momentous challenge that is ahead of many agencies and what that entails. From obtaining quotes to managing budgets and meeting deadlines, it's their goal to help you streamline that entire process to be as effective as you can be. They've tackled massive replacement programs and also have a buyback program for officers that helps them hold on to the firearm that means a lot to them. After 18 years in business, ProForce knows how to help agencies all over the U.S. navigate all the challenges that come with transitioning to a new firearm. And believe me, there are many. If your agencies are at the point where your firearms need to be replaced, and you have a say in that process, you should check out ProForce. I'm confident they'll give you great customer service and a fantastic price on any of the major brands out there. They've helped agencies transition to everything from Smith & Wesson M&P to the Sig Sauer P320, the Glock 17, and every model in between. Also, don't forget about your long guns, because they carry Remington, Colt, and many others. Check them out at proforceonline.com or call their sales department at 1-800-367-5855. Again, that's 1-800-367-5855, or you can email sales@proforceonline.com. They'll hook you up with a free quote, no pressure, no obligation. Just make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Squad Room. Now, ProForce also has 2 retail locations in Orange County and Prescott, Arizona, so if you're near either, make sure you stop in to see their selection. They've gotten rid of that 2 to 3 hour wait time for firearms purchases, and now they take appointments, and they've got everything you want to go with your brand new gun. Holsters, lights, sights, ammo, and much more. Check out their newest deals at proforceonline.com. And in fact, if you go into the store in Brea and tell the clerk you heard this ad, you'll get 20% off a Streamlight TLR1 pistol light. I use the TLR1 myself, and it's an awesome light, so get 20% off yours in store. Just tell the sales associate the secret password is the Squad Room. All right, so here we are with a rebroadcast of an older episode of the Squad Room with a guest who I think has phenomenal information that's going to help you lead a successful life. Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, welcome to the Squad Room.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Good to be here.
Sir, thank you very much for being here. I've been excited for this conversation for a long time. I was almost a rookie when I got the opportunity to learn about you, of course, through some of your writings. But then shortly after I finished probation, I got to see you speak live on the Bulletproof Mindset. And as I was getting ready for the interview this morning, I dug through some of my old notes, and I still have the handout from over a decade ago, I think, of when I saw you. And such an impression that class made on me. I went to the 8-hour Bulletproof Mind course, and if people can't tell, I can't recommend that highly enough. You are traveling all over the country, so people should be able to catch you at some point anywhere, regardless of where they are. So you are the author of several books, of course, too. But today I want to focus on the Bulletproof Mind, what that is, and how we can help the individual officer. This podcast is about helping individual officers be successful. So for the people who aren't familiar with you, can you give us a quick synopsis of what the Bulletproof Mindset is for you?
Yeah. Well, the military calls it resiliency. I call it Bulletproof Mind. I was a keynote speaker for the first Department of Defense-wide resiliency conference. I was the opening speaker for the second DoD-wide resiliency conference. And resiliency is a term for people who do not get PTSD, Holocaust survivors and POWs who walk out of an unthinkable evil and upstairs are just fine. And I asked my audience, do you believe there's such people? You got it. It's a simple historical fact. And we studied those people. I met one a while back. He was a retired military as a young pilot. He'd been shot down over North Vietnam. He was a POW, torture, malnutrition for years on end without end in sight. He says, I walked out of that POW camp, and it's a simple medical fact. I didn't have PTSD, and most of us didn't. And that's resiliency. And I said, sir, what made that possible? And he said, every evil act of the enemy inflicted upon us renewed our faith. We're on the right side in this war. Every bad thing that happens in this world, that's the foundation of resiliency. Every bad thing that happens should renew your faith that the world needs what you have to give. You'd be like Batman. The average citizen of Gotham City watches the news, crime, death, violence. They hunker down, hide, lock the door. Batman hears about crime and violence, and he knows he's got to get out there and do his job. The world needs what you have to give. Things are bad. The homicide rate has exploded in America like nothing we've seen since the American Civil War. 2 years straight, 2015, 2016, double-digit increase in homicides across America. 2017 is looking even worse. The director of the FBI flat stated it's the Ferguson effect. We've empowered criminals. We've created a sense of righteous indignation in criminals. If you're a criminal, you should live your life in fear, not in righteous indignation. And we cut the legs off under our cops. And the director of the FBI flat said, with 1 year of data before the elections, many criminologists and sociologists, you can't say anything with 1 year of data. Now with 2 years of data and the third year looking even worse, all the criminologists, sociologists, it's the only explanation. It is a profound impact. An explosion of cops murdered in the line of duty last year. More cops were murdered in the first 3 quarters of the year than the previous year altogether. And the point of all this is to understand that our sacrifice, and law enforcement is a life of sacrifice. You're not in this for the money. You deserve to be paid. You deserve to be paid well. But nobody can ever pay you enough to do what you do. Law enforcement is a life of sacrifice, and our sacrifice is for a noble and worthy purpose. And that's the foundation of resiliency. To understand that what you go out there and do every day is noble and worthy. The second step in resiliency is motivation turned into action. Try to find a way to be a little bit better every day. There are no ultimate sheepdogs. They're just people up down the scale. And that brings us to the sheep, the wolf, and the sheepdog. There are no ultimate sheep. There are no ultimate wolves. There are no ultimate sheepdog. But it defines where you at. And we're somewhere along that trail between the sheepdog and the sheep. The hard thing to explain, Garrett, sociologically, psychologically, is that 99% of our citizens will go a lifetime and never kill anybody, never try to. Now think about that. Divorce, infidelity, layoffs, traffic accidents, 300 million people bounce off each other every day. And 99% of our citizens will go a lifetime and never kill anybody, never try to. And how do you explain that? Outliers are outliers. You get a big enough population, you'll get any kind of crazy outlier. But to explain why the vast, vast majority are like that, that's the hard part. And I covered that in my book on killing, that natural resistance in most healthy members of our species. And how we have to overcome that resistance with training and preparation and mindset and equipment and simulators. So it's a matter of coming further up that scale. And I think one of the things we got to understand right now, and I know you've got a great worldwide audience, law enforcement from all over, and I think there's great value to understanding across the free world, we're at war. My son is a Spec Ops warrior, just got back from his 9th combat tour. Can anybody deny that our troops over there fighting and dying every day? Our nation's at war. NATO is in Afghanistan. All the NATO nations are there. Our nations are at war. And when that enemy attacks over here, our cops are the frontline troops. In America, we've got the Posse Comitatus Act. And it says that the military cannot get involved on American soil. Around the planet, there's elite federal teams or elite military teams ready to respond. In America, it's a local cop's job to do it. And increasingly, in France, a little over a year ago with the attacks and the movie theater in particular, take a look at what happened. It came out in the news months afterwards in that movie theater. One of the local cops started to go in. He was really a hero. He started to go in. The terrorists began to react to that. They pulled back, as I understand it. And then the word came out, don't go in. Wait for the elite federal team. And so they had an hour in that theater. And they tortured and they mutilated and they murdered every person in that theater for an hour, waiting for the elite federal team to show up. Now, if they could do that one over again, I'll bet you anything you want that they wish those cops had gone in immediately. You know, that's the lesson we learned in Columbine. And we don't have time to wait. We don't have time to sit around. And around the planet, our cops have got to understand, you're the first line responders. England, it's in the news, 600 London police are being trained and armed. And it's just the beginning. We've got to understand that our nations are at war. We're over there in Afghanistan, NATO right now, at war. And when the terrorists attack over here, our cops are the frontline troops. No more denial. We've got to understand that the magnitude of the threat, we saw it in France a little over a year ago. That's the magnitude of the threat. That's the price we pay for failure. And we've got to come further up that scale. Wear that body armor. Carry that weapon off duty when it's legal and lawful. And it should be legal and lawful around the planet for cops to carry 24/7. You trust them on duty, you should trust them off duty. I talk in Canada, I talk in England. I tell them, you know, when you come to the next level and you really want to ramp up for the next level of threat, here's the one thing you can do right now that costs nothing. Authorize your police to carry off duty. And in America, it's a no-brainer. In Canada, across Europe, we don't want those evil guns on our streets. You trust them on duty, you trust them off duty. And that's the next level up. So just understand the magnitude of the threat, how desperately our nation needs what you have to give, and rise to that sheepdog position to be the one who accepts responsibility for lives and goes toward the danger. The next step in resiliency really is a positive self-fulfilling prophecy. The data coming out of Iraq, the stuff that the media reports, is so much garbage out there. You've heard 22 veterans a day take their life. But what they don't tell you, and look this up, of those 22, only 1 or 2 are from the current war.
Right. Yeah.
That's something they don't want you. They want you to think it's all from the current war. There's a terrible price we're paying for this evil war, when the truth is just the opposite. Every suicide's a shame, but there's this belief that our military is coming home as suicidal, homicidal, PTSD-riddled nutcases. You know, I keep running into veterans who think there's something wrong with them because there's nothing wrong with them. The best data we have, far and away the best, most solid data we have, 2 major studies that came up with the exact same results. For those deploying to PTSD, about 5%, those deploying to Iraq and Afghanistan, about 5% will contract PTSD. Among those who are actually in combat, little less than 8%. And we're darn good at treating PTSD. A new greatest generation is coming home. If you believe that life and death event will destroy you, then it will. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You've got to believe that these things will make us stronger, and a new greatest generation is coming home. And that's what I call no pity party. I have confidence that these things will make you stronger. But the other half of the equation is no macho man. Find that balance between the pity party and the macho man. If you got a problem, get help. Create an environment which is okay to get help. The docs are good. They get better every day, and we're darn good at treating PTSD. We get better every day. The next step in resiliency is sleep. The elephant in the living room in law enforcement is sleep-deprived people making insane mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
If I were king and I could change one thing about law enforcement, I'd pass a law right now. The cops have got to have sleep just like truck drivers. Truck drivers are required a lot to get enough sleep, but cops aren't. That should enrage us. And tired people on the streets are going to make mistakes. We're now in a zero defects environment. Everything every cop does is caught on video. Between the three shifts, around 500,000 cops are on duty in a given day. What are the odds that one of them will do something stupid?
Right.
500,000 people, there's always an outlier. There's going to be an outlier doing something stupid. It'll be caught on camera, and the media will show it over and over again. We're in a zero defects environment. And we got to get the word out. You tell your chief. Chief will be the next Ferguson if you put tired cops on the street. Better to have no cop than a tired cop, just like truck drivers. I'm in the air constantly. And if they don't have a rested pilot, they don't have a rested crew, they cancel the flight. Mm-hmm. Better to have no flight than a tired pilot. Better to have no cop than a tired cop. People are screaming bloody murder. We want our cops and pay them more and hire more. And that's going to happen. But sleep is the elephant in the living room. It's the one area we'll make progress. In my class, I talk about sleeping in a truly dark room. If you could do one thing, just sleep in a truly dark room or with a sleep mask. I'm a huge science geek. My favorite website is sciencedaily.com. Major study in a sleep lab. Dark room, bathroom lights on, the door is shut. The light coming under the crack of the bathroom door is enough light to prevent your body from producing the melatonin that you need.
Yep.
You need to sleep in a truly dark room and or wear the sleep mask. And there's so much more about sleep, but that's one you could use right now.
Yep.
And the snooze alarm. The snooze alarm is an evil little button that makes you relive the worst part of every day over and over.
That's absolutely right.
The snooze alarm is truly evil. It's 10
Why wake up 4 times?
That 10-minute nap is not doing any good as far as sleep goes. It's not doing anything good as far as your life goes. You get 3 10-minute snoozes, you just threw away a half an hour. So what I tell people is set the alarm a half hour later and get the hell out of bed. Put the alarm where you got to get out of bed to turn it off. That's all you got to do. And take that snooze alarm time and apply it to quality sleep. So 2 things you do right now without changing a thing. Sleep in a truly dark room and or wear a sleep mask, and don't use that snooze alarm. And put that back in. There's so much more that we can give people. But the next stage in resiliency is understanding how your body responds and being forewarned and forearmed against that. And of course, all of this is in my book on combat, issued in the DEA Academy, issued in the Marshals Academy, Marine Corps Commandant's required reading, Army and Air Force recommended reading, translated into 5 languages. I've got a son in the fight. When he deployed to the invasion of Afghanistan, the one book I gave him on his first combat tour was an early draft of On Combat. If I had a kid in the fight, and I do, the one book I would want them to read is On Combat. All the resiliency dynamics are built into that. So it's a matter of preparing yourself for the fight and recognizing the fact that while everybody else flees from the sound of the guns, that's the sheep, it's your job to go toward the sound of the guns. And that's a very noble endeavor. Our sacrifice is for a noble and worthy purpose. And so that's kind of the Bulletproof Mind in a nutshell. There's so much more. I mean, an entire book
right.
worth of data on it. But we've got to prepare ourselves. We got to strip away denial and embrace preparation. Denial kills us twice. You don't have the gun, you don't have the body armor, you don't have the skills, and you die like any other sheep. Even if you survive, you live the rest of your life in hell because there's simple things you could and should have done. Preparation saves us twice. You've got the gun, you've got the skills, you've got the tools, and you're triumphant. But even if you fail, you can live with yourself because you did everything you can do. So that's resiliency, bulletproof mind. Come further up that scale, embrace preparation, dedicate yourself to this incredibly noble and worthy profession.
So yeah, that was probably a little unfair to ask you to condense a lifetime of work into a couple of minutes to refresh everybody. But
you do what you can. You rise to whatever opportunity is there to do as much good as you can.
Yeah, and you talk about sleep. We've had a lot of episodes with sleep specialists. I completely can double down on your comments about sleep and the importance of it as someone with sleep disorders and all that because of the job, right? So.
Talk about sleep disorder. I'll give you an angle on this. I tell my classes, I train at one time or another. I've trained all of our SEAL teams. I trained all of our spec ops, trained all the federal agencies. But I was training a bunch of SEALs, and one of their E9s, a Master Chief, highest enlisted rank you can have. Master Chief comes up and he said, I had 9 years of bad sleep. Everybody on the team complained about my snoring. Finally, they ordered me to go to the sleep lab. One night in the sleep lab, they said, "Oh, Master Chief, you got sleep apnea. You got bad. Sleep with the CPAP machine." He said, that first night of good sleep, after 9 years of bad sleep, that first night with that CPAP machine on, he said, no meal I've ever eaten, no sex I've ever had, nothing in my life has ever been as good as that first good night's sleep after 9 years of bad sleep. For a guy like that, I figure it's got credibility. Don't hesitate to go to that sleep lab. Wear that CPAP machine if you need it or whatever it is you need to do to get that quality of sleep. It is essential to our performance.
Yeah, I can't double down on that one enough either. I had the exact same experience when I finally went to a sleep lab after years of my wife giving me an elbow and saying, "Hey, you're snoring," and not feeling rested. And then it's hard to describe to people how you realize you didn't realize how sleep deprived and how bad your sleep was until you go back and you have that first night of good sleep and you go, "That's what it's supposed to be like? Yeah, that's what I'm supposed to feel like?
Beautiful.
I feel amazing." Right. Yeah, no, it's amazing. So you just mentioned one of the quotes that really stuck with me from your presentation about denial killing you twice. Another one was an analogy you used comparing us to the fire department in the sense that the fire department has and I don't know if you still use this, but
I begin every class with it.
They have these redundant overlapping layers of protection, right? And you give the example of, the lack of fires in schools because they have the fire retardant carpet and they have the overhead sprinklers and they have the mandatory multiple exits with the lighted signs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that the law enforcement doesn't have that that same presence or influence, I guess, maybe with the public. But what I took from that too was that we as individual officers also need to have those redundant overlapping layers of protection for ourselves when it comes to resilience and that bulletproof mind. And to me, that is developed into the importance of mind, body, and spirit overlapping. And I was wondering if you agree with that, disagree with that, if there's one you would take away or if there's one you would add, something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, half the construction cost of a modern building can go into fire code. Fireproof material versus cheapest alternative, fireproof material for the interior furnishing versus cheapest alternative, fire sprinkler system under pressure with the lifetime of the building, electrical system up to fire code, double the electrical system, run wire in every smoke alarm and every fire alarm and every fire exit. You can easily double the cost of a modern building to meet fire code. And one of the most amazing things is the fire alarm. And I want to talk to you about something I think is best practices that we could be doing right now. The fire alarm is such a brilliant piece of technology. First, the fire guy knows under stress, color vision goes out, except red. We're designed to see red under stress. Blood, survival data, makes sense. What color is the fire alarm when you go out the door? Little red square. The fire guy knows under stress that fine motor control goes out. What do I have to do to let him know there's a fire? Grab and pull. Those are gross motor skills. And having the alarm by the door is brilliant because the answer to fire is almost always go out. But we need something like the fire alarm for violence. And the cell phone, you pull out your cell phone. Bang, another kid died. Bang, another kid died. What did I do? I challenge you to put the passcode in under stress. You did. You put in your passcode. Good for you. Now what do you do? Bang, another kid died. Flip to the proper screen. Right now, what do you do? Dial 911. I fumble the dial under normal conditions. I'll give you case after case where people were not able to dial 911. You dial 911. Good for you. Now what do you do? Bang, another kid died. Tell them who you are and where you are and what's happening. There is a horrifying audio tape from the Aurora, California movie theater massacre of one of the people, and there's nothing but gunshots. Now, every 6 gunshot, a person's dead. Bam, 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 bam. Every 6 shots average out, a person's dead. And this guy's on his cell phone trying to talk to the dispatcher, and the dispatcher cannot hear a word. She says, say it louder. And he starts shouting, and then he dies. It was physically incapable, even dialing 911, even making contact with the background of noises. He was incapable of saying what's happening, where it's at. We need something for violence like we do for fire, and we do. I'm a huge fan of the Hero 911 program. It's a free app. Go to the App Store and download Hero 911. Out of the million apps in the App Store, it's the only one just for law enforcement. They had to get special permission. They got great support. But there's one app for law enforcement. They'll ask for a photograph of your credentials. They put you in the system. If you're within a radius of an incident, every cop, on duty, off duty, retired, reserve, is notified instantly and charges to the sound of the guns. And you tap a button that says, I'm responding, plain clothes or uniform. The teacher has an app. Now, the COPS app is free. I personally paid to put this system in my grandkids' school. The teacher has an app. It's a big red button. Tap it, swipe it, tap it again. The capstone website is guard911.com. Guard911.com. Every teacher has an app. You can set it up in a day. It taps it, swipes it, taps it again. Gross motor skills. It immediately sends the alarm out to everybody else in the building. We have an intruder. It gives the location of the intruder. It notifies every cop in a radius. Now, in Texas, it's like a 20-mile radius, and in New York, it's like a 5-mile radius. But within a given radius, every cop is notified. It speed dials 911. It notifies every cop. It lets everybody else in the building know. It gives the location of the intruder, and it notifies everybody else in a 5-mile radius because the killers often go mobile, and it lets everybody else know. 300 people a year in America are killed by fire. 15,000 a year are killed by violence. Wherever you see a fire alarm, you're 50 times more likely to kill by violence than you are for fire. 50 times more likely to need that gun than you are to need that fire extinguisher. And so wherever you see a fire alarm, we should have this system in place. These guys are going to be the next Apple. It's a state trooper in Illinois that put it together. He's an American hero, guard911.com. But these are the kind of ways that technology is rising to the challenge. You got a red button. You tap it, swipe it, tap it again. Does all the things you would want it to do. That's our equivalent of the fire alarm. The fire extinguisher. There's another company doing great work, having the gun there for selected individuals with proper training when you need it in a vault with a retinal scanner. It's TemplarISS.com, TEMPLAR, Integrated Security System, TemplarISS.com. They're going to be the next Apple. And being able to respond with the firearm with people on scene is an interesting phenomenon. Israel's had armed people for generations. Texas for over 15 years. It's got armed educators. Utah, I don't think there's a school left in Utah that doesn't have armed educators. Ohio, they tell me over 70% of all counties in Ohio now have armed educators. But there's a downside to this, and we got to be upfront. Carrying a gun around is a pain in the ass, literally. It stops being cool after the first week. To carry a gun in that school year after year after year takes enormous discipline. They put it in the desk drawer. They put it in their purse. They put it in the car, and maintenance. And I tell, we've got a gunsmithing business. My son and I, a gun business, Sheepdog Knife and Gun.com, sheepdogknifeandgun.com. We got some patented items. We're doing some amazing things. We can do a show on that one time if you'd like to. But if you carry a gun on your body, concealed, the accumulation of crud is almost impossible to leave. You need armor level maintenance at least once a year. And I ask my audience, any of you ladies ever walk away from your purse? How do you get up and leave your purse? Well, that happens. And people walk away from their gun. 2 years ago, the Park Police had 3 cases of cops leaving a gun in the bathroom. And there's a possibility of accidents. A police officer, or an educator in Utah a little while back shot a commode in the bathroom. It happens. So why not, if we're going to have armed educators, let's make sure they're properly trained and we keep track of them. What do we do with Bill? Bill's been carrying a gun in school for the last 5 years, but Bill, you had that messy divorce, you had that DUI. We don't want you carrying a gun no more. We don't trust you no more. How do you do that without inciting an incident? You understand?
Sure.
So what these guys have is Bill, the retinal scanner won't work for you. They took you off the list. You got that, it's out of our hands, but you had that messy divorce, had that DUI, they took you off the list. Get your life together. Next year, you'll be back on the list. It's all brilliant. When you open the vault, it immediately notifies law enforcement. These are the kind of things, like the fire extinguisher sits there year after year until you need it. Now, these guys mandate training, and if you don't stay current with your training and current with your qualification, then the retinal scanner won't work for you. They update who gets through it. But these are the kind of things we're trying to do in our own individual lives. Understand this. The number one thing we can be doing is living our life in condition yellow and carrying the life-saving tools of our profession. Condition yellow, keep your back to the wall. Be alert to what's going on around you. Have the life-saving tools of your profession on you. Prepare for that moment of truth. And in our own lives, when it's legal and lawful, never be caught without the life-saving tools of your profession on your body. You are literally 50 times more likely to need that gun to save your loved ones than you already need that fire extinguisher. And really, the number of people murdered underrepresents the problem, because medical technology is saving ever more lives every year. We talk about the number dead in Chicago, and we say, well, X number of cops murdered this year. Oh, that's nothing compared to the 1970s. So time out. Take away body armor, take away medical technology in the 1970s, the number of cops murdered in the line of duty would be 8 times what it is. Every year we have better tactics, better training, better technology to hold down the number of dead cops. And in spite of that, in 2016, in the first 3 quarters of the year, more cops murdered than the previous year put together. I believe 2016 is the single greatest year-over-year increase of cops murdered in the history of our nation. And so have that life-saving tool of your profession on your body. These are the things we can do right now to take that fire model and embrace it and look at overlapping layers of protection. Examine your own life and things you can do and the ways you can come. To what degree do you want your loved ones to be trained and armed? Your kids know what to do. We teach stop, drop, and roll to kids. Everybody's taught stop, drop, and roll. It was very controversial first came out. You can't teach that to kindergartners. They'll have nightmares about catching on fire. No, they don't have nightmares. How many of y'all were taught stop, drop, and roll? Did anybody have nightmares? Well, we got to teach the kids to take action when the bad man comes in that room.
Hey guys and girls, I'm going to interrupt this episode to talk a little bit more about our sponsor, ProForce. A couple years ago, I was looking online for a new duty gun to replace my aging HK. My agency was taking a long time to close the deal, so I decided to purchase my own Glock Gen 4 G17. I shopped around and found out about ProForce and their insane prices on firearms and accessories, not just from Glock, but from all the major manufacturers, including SIG, Smith & Wesson, Ruger, HK, Colt, Remington, Springfield, and many others. Now, if you're a cop anywhere in Los Angeles or Orange County or even northern San Diego, you already know about ProForce and their amazing deals that they have at their store in Brea. They are only open to first responders, fire, law enforcement, medics, etc., and they are here to serve us. When they reached out to me to talk about working together, I wanted to learn more about them, so I spent a lot of time on the phone with them because though they're known for their great customer service, I just wanted to make sure they were a right fit for this show. Well, ProForce has 2 retail locations, Orange County, California, and Prescott, Arizona. So if you're near either, make sure you stop in and see their selection. They've gotten rid of those 2 to 3 hour wait times that they kind of became famous for, and they've instituted an appointment system that makes your purchase so much faster. And they've got everything you want to go with your brand new gun: holsters, lights, sights, ammo, and more. Check out their newest deals at proforceonline.com. And in fact, if you go into the store in Brea in Orange County, and tell the clerk you heard this ad, you'll get 20% off a Streamlight TLR1 pistol light. I use the TLR1 myself, and it's an awesome light, so get 20% off yours in store. Just tell the sales associate the secret password, the Squadron. All right, back to the episode.
We've got to teach people to take action, and we're teaching our kids. It's very controversial, but it's just like stop, drop, and roll. So we got the fire drills. We're teaching the equivalent of stop, drop, and roll in fire drills. We've got the fire extinguisher. It might be pepper spray. Every teacher in America should have pepper spray on their body right now. They're doing goofy stuff. They're putting wasp spray in the classroom. Yeah, we're going to spray the bag with wasp spray. Well, best I can tell, there's 2 kinds of wasp spray. One is like shooting him with a squirt gun. The other will kill him right now. Game over. He's dead. We should not give every teacher deadly force. A few carefully trained, carefully selected educators with deadly force, maybe. To hand every teacher deadly force is insane, and that's what they're doing. Give them pepper spray. Every teacher should have pepper spray as just a baseline. We recommend it. They're not paying us a nickel to say so. Sabre Red Pepper Gel. Go to Amazon.com. Sabre, S-A-B-R-E, Red. It's a gel. It's a straight stream. It doesn't have cross-contamination. It dyes the bad guy's face, and you can carry it everywhere. It comes in pink for those who are confident in their masculinity.
I just bought my wife that exact same thing a couple of days ago, that exact brand and everything.
So, it's just a matter of looking at the fire extinguisher equivalent we can give people, the fire alarm equivalents, and, of course, the fire code. What can we do to make this room safer? One of the things we're doing nationwide is just having the classroom door locked all the time. 2 classrooms full of kids were slaughtered at Sandy Hook Elementary School, Newtown, Connecticut, because the teacher couldn't lock the door from the inside. It was death to walk into the hallway, and all he did was open the door and walk in and murder 2 classrooms of kids and their teachers. But there's a simple answer. Have the classroom door locked all the time. That's the equivalent of our fire code. Laminate film on any glass. There is a company that truly is a notch better than everyone else. It's a clear-armor.com. Clear-armor.com. I put it on my own house. They really are a notch better than everyone else. But put that laminate film. Any glass on the door or beside the door must have the laminate film. That's our fire code. The doors have got to be secureable from the inside. And the best bets have them locked all the time. And any glass on the door, beside the door, should have the laminate film. That's our fire code. What are our fire drills? Well, we run, hide, fight. We teach the kids what to do. What's the equivalent of the fire extinguisher? Well, the pepper spray in your pocket, or the gun in the vault with the retinal scanner. What's the equivalent of the fire alarm? Well, the Guard 911 system. So it's a matter of looking around and taking best practices worldwide and applying them in the same way the fire guy did.
I just had an experience recently that really drove home. I mean, you're the creator of the sheepdog analogy, and you just brought it up. We had an active shooter drill at my son's private small preschool, and they got an elementary school on campus there too. But watching some of the parents get very uptight and very concerned and very vocal about rehearsing something like this was interesting to watch from my perspective, of course, because, again, I'm thinking back, well, nobody threw a fit when they had the fire drill last week, right? But it's such a hard thing.
Stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah, it's such.
When they catch on fire.
It was such an in-person experience of the sheep who were having a hard time accepting this reality versus me standing there as the sheepdog and knowing that the wolf is coming, right?
Yeah. And what I tell people is there's a long-established body of research that tells us that the way people are going to respond, they're in denial. You pop their denial bubble, the first response is anger, then bargaining, then acceptance. Denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance. They're going to vent. Law enforcement after Columbine, we said, all right, we changed the rules, we're going in. nationwide. There were old cops. I'm not going to do that. That's BS. I'm waiting for the SWAT team. The truth is, when it came to the moment, they were going in. Let people vent. You pop their denial bubble, they're going to vent. Denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance. And what you saw was the first step in people's ideas evolving. Is their first response is anger, and then explain to them. This is just like stop, drop, and roll. And then comes bargaining and acceptance. And it's just almost this universal human process where the very first thing they got to do when their view of the world is threatened is to get angry. Mm-hmm. But it'll pass. It passes.
So what are some of the things that you think we could be doing back to this resilience to prepare for these things, to be part of that overlapping redundant layer of protection for our society that we as individual officers could do on a daily basis? I mean, motivation and sleep, of course, those things, but do you have a particular mental practice yourself or physical practice, or what would you recommend for each officer as a day-to-day?
Yeah, the breathing exercise in my book is very powerful. Mm-hmm. We've had recent research, very recent research, that you can extinguish the fear response in your body through breathing. Mm-hmm. But you got to breathe in through the nose. A deep breath in through it's amazing. You breathe into the mouth, you don't get the effect. I don't know why, but the research is clear. It's solid research. A big breath in through the nose has an immediate, powerful physiological response. So, our immediate tool is breathing. But I would tell you the physical skill that I tell everybody we need the most is marksmanship. There was a cop at Columbine High School, the school resource officer, and he arrived almost immediately. The killers tried to ambush him from a second-floor window. I was the opening speaker at Columbine School Safety Summit. I stood where the killers stood, second floor. I stood where the cop stood behind his vehicle. Could not have been more than 50 yards, probably less. Behind his vehicle, under fire. Now he's under fire. Nobody's saying it's easy. Behind his vehicle, under fire, the cop emptied 3 magazines of ammo and didn't hit once. He's out of ammo. What choice did he have but to leave? Now, first off, if he'd had a rifle in that vehicle, Columbine would have been a different story. But how many of you out there think with 3 magazines of ammo, with the rest from 50 yards, you could make one hit? I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah, most of us would raise our hand.
And the parents of 12 dead kids in Columbine would have given anything on earth for a cop who could have made that shot. And I give my classes 2 very modern, current examples to wrap your mind around. It was May of 2015 outside of Dallas, Texas, the Draw Muhammad Art Festival. Now, could they possibly be more provocative? It was their right to do it. They're afraid it would draw bad guys, and it did. 2 art critics with AK-47s and body armor showed up from Arizona. They had the element of surprise. There were 2 of them. They had body armor. They had rifles. They rolled out of their vehicle, and a 59-year-old traffic cop with a pistol killed them both. Game over. And who would not want to shake that man's hand?
Right.
His name is Officer Greg Stevens. Let's just Google and look at the image of President Obama putting the Presidential Medal of Valor around Greg Stevens. Officer Greg Stevens, Garland, Texas, Obama. Just put that in and come up with the image of President Obama putting that medal. Did you know there's an equivalent of a Medal of Honor to be given to law enforcement at national level? I didn't know that.
I didn't know.
The Presidential Medal of Valor. And here's what he told me about the incident. He said the way they were sitting in that car, the way their heads were turning, the things they were doing made alarm bells go off. Now, he's on the passenger side about 40 feet away. And they stop and they roll out of the vehicle. On the passenger side, he sees the foot come out. He sees the stock of the rifle come out. And he draws and puts a bullet in the bad guy's armpit. Now, as soon as there's my hobby is shooting. And the martial art of Jiu-Jitsu, the martial art of the gun. I thought I was a good shot. I'm a competitive shooter, not very good. The other guys all practice, but I'm on the road.
You're a little busy.
I'm a gun sight and front sight grad. I thought I was a good shooter. And I showed up the first day for Jiu-Jitsu at a 3-day weekend and barely made brown belt. I trained for 2 years. I knew what shots I was missing and times I missed. I trained for 2 years to make my black belt. But when I'm in charge of a one-day shooting process, and I'm going to be doing one tomorrow in Kentucky, outside of Owensboro on the range. I'll do a whole day of jiu-jitsu. What I tell them, we wrap up the day with a series of drills where you have your hand on the gun. Whether the weapon at low ready and the weapon with your good firm grip on it, your response time's identical. You gain no more response by taking that gun out of the holster and go to the low ready. But what happens if you're not wearing a uniform and you have that gun out, the chances of being shot by the good guys goes way up. But if the weapon's in the holster with good firm grip, then the chances of being shot goes way down. And yet the response time's the same. What I tell people, if you're not wearing a uniform and you're not actively putting holes in the bad guy, have that gun in the holster with good firm grip. You lose no time and you increase your survivability enormously. Even the bad guy is probably less likely to shoot at you. He doesn't see you as an immediate threat. So we do all of our training work going up with a hand off the gun. That's Hollywood. That's competition. Mm-hmm. So we got Greg Stevens, already good firm grip on the gun. The bad guy rolls out of the vehicle, and he sees the stock of that rifle. Boom, fires a shot, puts it in the armpit, like almost 40 feet away. How many of you could to draw and snap a shot off like that? And I saw a crime scene photograph of what happened. Now, the bad guys are gone. The car's gone. There's a bloody smear where the passenger died, a bloody smear where the driver died, and a trail of ejected brass as he advanced on a move. Puts a bullet in the armpit, multiple headshots. The bad guy's down. He's coming around the trunk of the vehicle. Now, the bad guy on the driver's side puts out wounds an unarmed security guard. The unarmed security guard saw the guy get out with the rifle. He thought it was a stunt. He said, these guys are going to get hurt. You know, if you don't have a hammer, nothing looks like a nail. Unarmed people will spend their life in denial. And the unarmed security guard is wounded, and Greg Stevens comes around the trunk of the vehicle. The bad guy realizes his problem and starts to spin on Greg. Multiple headshots. Bad guy's down. Greg advances on him. Multiple torso shots. Game over. What I tell people is there was a time in law enforcement when every police department had a bunch of shooting trophies. They honored those shooting trophies above all else. And Greg Stevens is the personification. Hey, he's shorter than I am, got a few more pounds than I do. He's not necessarily but he's walking. He practices. He says, I practice all the time. I go to the range and I practice. Now, that's the first case. The second case is the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida. We know there was a cop there in security. We know he got shots in and he missed. Mm-hmm. We know another cop showed up and they both got shots in and they missed. What would it feel like to look at 49 dead people and know they'd all be alive? I could have made the shot.
Oh,
so which one do you want to be? You want to be Greg Stevens? Or are you going to be the Pulse nightclub? Yeah. It's about training. How do you spend your time? How do you spend your money? I've got a theme that runs through my training now about piss on golf. There's no survival skill found on the golf course. There's no cardio demands on the golf course. For us, the golf course is a willful and deliberate misuse of a perfectly good rifle range. And we're not impressed if you hit a little golf ball 200 yards. Hit a golf ball from 200 yards, we're impressed. So what I tell people is, are you going to be Greg Stevens? Are you going to stand in front of the president as he puts the Medal of Honor around your Medal of Valor around your neck? Or are you going to be the two unknown cops? God bless them. They did the best they could in the Pulse nightclub. It's about training. It's about marksmanship. And I remember right up to the 1970s when the World War II vets were still running the show. The 1970s, our chiefs and our sheriffs, our captains, our sergeants were World War II vets. And they honored the roly-poly little guy on the pistol team more than anyone else. Think about that. Mm-hmm. When we were 100% wartime veterans, straight out of World War II, we honored one thing above all else. The roly-poly little guy on the pistol team was what we honored. That's Greg Stevens. He's not your rock-jawed, 6'3", steely-eyed. Got a little weight on him. Not quite as tall as you and I, but walking, talking death. You can be fat, and you can be old, and it's okay, as long as you're still one hell of a shot. So all the things we could be doing right now, practicing our marksmanship skills and being prepared for the moment of truth is the one I would put first on the list. How are we spending our money? It's time to hang up the golf clubs and hit the range and hit the gym and hit the dojo to prepare for a moment of truth. And if you do that and you fail, you can live with yourself. Or if you don't do these things, if you piss your time away, if you piss your money away, and you fail, you can have a lot of trouble living with yourself. So to just embrace the reality and train and prepare for that day that you may be Greg Stevens. You may be the one at the moment of truth that will save untold lives. It could have been the Pulse nightclub times 2. 2 killers, body armor, rifles. It could have been the Pulse nightclub times 2. But not a single person died. So it's all about training.
So here's a question I've been wanting to ask you for probably since I saw you talk and emphasize some of these things. So, we go through a 3 or 4 day work week, some of us 5 days. We spend that time on the range, we spend that time in the dojo or the gym. But we got to be careful of maxing out though too, right? So how and this I'm even looking at, like I said, I pulled up the notes I had from your class.
Yeah.
Your combat efficiency slide where we become battle-wise and then we have maximum efficiency, but then we either have a period of overconfidence or hyper-reactive into emotional exhaustion.
Right.
And the data you use is from a soldier, but the same can be applied to a cop who's got a 4-day work week, a couple of kids, all the family life stuff, but he goes to the range, he goes to the dojo, he goes to the gym, all with this mindset of, being the best and the absolute most prepared he can be. Yeah. But at what point does that burn us out, and what do you recommend we do to step away from that to be able to refresh?
Yeah. Well, begin with that scale you're looking at is 60 days of inescapable combat on Normandy Beach. Mm-hmm. But you're right, there is a potential for burnout. And I would tell you that you got to have a hobby. You got to have a life outside this job. But it's a very pure and beautiful thing when your hobby reinforces your survival skills. There are so many things you could be doing with your loved ones to reinforce survival skills. Hunting. I'm convinced from a lifetime of study, the best way to prepare for combat for many reasons is hunting. Competitive shooting, we talked about that. Cowboy action shooting, airsoft and paintball. Can't buy ammo, can't afford ammo, don't whine to me. Airsoft, paintball. My grandson and I in the basement with the pellet pistol working on our fundamentals. Martial arts. Recent scientific study demonstrated martial arts enormously valuable for a cop. You and your loved one can be doing. If your hobby doesn't have survival skills, at least for Lord's sake, let your hobby have something where cardio demands. Running, swimming, bicycling, baseball, softball, tennis, have all got cardio demands. It brings us back to golf. Piss on golf. There's no survival skill found on the golf course. There's no cardio demands found on the golf course. You need to have a life outside this job. But there's no reason why it shouldn't reinforce your survival skills. There's so many things we could be doing. And you talk about working a 4-day week. The data is there. The stupidest thing we're doing is these 12-hour shifts and these 4-day weeks. Everybody wants to be like firefighters. Well, firefighters get to sleep on the job. Now, only firefighters and prostitutes make money in bed. You ain't no firefighter, baby. You can't sleep on the job. When we go to 12-hour shifts, accidents explode, complaints explode, internal affairs investigations explode. At the end of a 12-hour shift, people are exhausted. The idea of working 12-hour shifts is insane. It's negligent. And rotating shifts. I tell people nationwide, if you're rotating shifts, just start saving up money right now. You're going to be sued. You're going to be successfully sued. You are taking years off people's lives. It takes a lot of people up to a full year to fully adapt to night shift. And your people are always behind the power curve. Every time you rotate shifts, they're behind the power curve. It's insane. It is scientifically, medically negligent to rotate shifts. The old timers knew what they were doing. 8-hour shifts, bid for your shift based on seniority. You want to be on nights for a lifetime? Good for you. You've earned the right. And you want to stay on nights and hunt the wolf? Good for you. Hey, you made the seniority. You want to switch the days? Good for you. You've earned it. You have the seniority. What we got is a generation coming in that doesn't want to wait to go on day shift. They don't think that's fair. They want to rotate shifts. Well, suck it up, Buttercup. Rotating shifts is killing everybody. Everybody behind the power curve is taking years off our lives. The old timers really knew what they were doing. And we got to fight tooth and nail against this idea of 12-hour shifts, and rotating shifts are two are the most scientifically, medically negligent, irresponsible things we're doing. So, 8-hour shifts, and then you have a life.
Right.
You have some time to spend with your family. You have some time to do things.
The hardest people to convince sometimes.
That long weekend. Anyway.
Yeah. The hardest people to convince sometimes are the cops because, they're used to that. They don't, kind of like to sleep. You don't know you're exhausted till you're not. And it's nice to have that 3 or 4 day weekend if you're working a 312 or a 412, 410. But trying to convince them that no, working 5 days a week's better for you. That's hard to do.
Over and watch your heads. You got to rein on that one.
You travel all over. You touched on it a little bit, but you travel all over the world. The free world anyway. Teaching cops, and we have a lot of listeners in the places you mentioned: England, Canada, Australia. I'm curious. I guess this is a U.S. centric question, but it could apply to the internationally. But what do you see are the things like you said, we're in a challenging time right now, very tough time. We're being really presented with I think we're being presented with the opportunity to really show our value.
It's the worst of time. It's the best of time. Your courage and your integrity shines bright for the darkness of the age.
I just did a recent episode on the story of King Leonidas at Thermopylae and how
Mulan Lobby, baby.
When one of his warriors comes to him and says that there's so many Persian archers that they will darken the skies with their arrows, and he says, well, then we shall fight in the shade.
Yes.
And I use that analogy to us to say, good, let's take this opportunity to show them, not to talk about it, but to show them that we're capable of fighting in the shade. But what are the things?
What I tell people too, I wrap up my presentation towards the end with a couple of key points, that were motivated by love, justice, not vengeance. But I tell about Leonidas and about the 300 Spartans, and good, we'll fight in the shade. I tell them there have been other hard times. There have been other crazy times. And this is one of them. So many pigeons are coming home to roost that it darkens the sky. But good, we'll fight in the shade. Yeah. So I couldn't agree more with you that our courage and our honor shines bright for your professionalism, for your sacrifice. These are days that make the Wild West pale by comparison. Daily, there's a gunfight at the OK Corral happening somewhere. That hyper-violent Latin America model's coming at us. Scary times are upon us. But your great-grandchildren will talk about you like we talk about Wyatt Earp or King Leonidas.
Mm-hmm. So where do you think the training needs to go for law enforcement moving forward with this paradigm that we're in? What do we need to be ramping up and emphasizing if it's different than what you've already spoken of? Or is there an element that we need to be adding?
Yeah. No, we pretty much covered the high ground. Mm-hmm. Knowing what to train for is important. I'll tell you one thing that we know is cops don't shoot at bullseyes. Cops don't shoot at man-shaped silhouettes. Cops shoot deadly force threats. If we're launching bullets at anything other than a clear depiction of a deadly force threat, then we're in violation of federal law and federal court case decisions, mm-hmm. federal findings. Several different federal findings told us that our training has got to be realistic, and it's got to give us the skills to respond in a real-world situation. It's hard for people to wrap their mind around the fact that we're shooting in a simulator at a human being. We're shooting at a photograph or an outline of a human being. But we don't. Our training, our performance under stress, is directly a product of our training. And if we're trained to shoot blank silhouettes, well, then at the moment of truth, there's a very good chance we'll shoot the wrong person. If we train for a lifetime to shoot at a photograph of a guy with a gun, then at a moment of truth, we'll be empowered to shoot the guy with a gun, but we'll be restrained from shooting the wrong person. So training has got to be realistic. And people say, oh, we're shooting at, realistic depictions of a human being. That's right. That's what cops shoot. If we're launching bullets at anything other than a clear depiction of a human being, then we're training our people to do the wrong thing. So it's all a matter of realistic training. Graham v. Connor was one of the cases just talking about realistic training. It's a matter of having the skills and having the equipment. Never leave without your body armor. It never be caught without it. Extra magazines, rifle in the vehicle. We need the rifles. The day has come when the bad guys showing up with body armor and rifles, and we're at an enormous disadvantage. So there's so many things that we can be doing to keep pushing that envelope. They're all pretty straightforward, obvious things. The elephant in the living room that nobody wants to talk about is sleep. It's killing us. It's literally killing us. And sleep-deprived people are taking years off their life, and they have had a bad quality life. They're not the parent they want to be. They're not the spouse they want to be. They're not the cop they want to be because they're sleep-deprived. Sleep deprivation is taking years off our life. It does make us have bad quality life. It's the elephant in the living room. But so many other things are just obvious. Realistic training, force-on-force scenarios. Our reality-based force-on-force scenarios with simulation-type ammo is one of the greatest revolutions in the history of warfare. When we look at people that fired at blank silhouettes versus people with force-on-force scenarios, the performance is orders of magnitude greater in real-world combat. New York, 35,000 gun toters, NYPD, they put the simulation-type force-on-force scenarios in place. Now, you're shooting a real bullet, a real gun. But what leaves the barrel is not a chunk of lead, but a plastic marking capsule. It leaves the barrel at 350, 400 feet per second. If it hits you in the hand, does it hurt? Yeah. And that's go on. Firefighters have to face real Bernie Alley fire in their training. We have to face real Bernie Alley bullets. Mm-hmm. One of the greatest leaps forward in performance. NYPD puts it in place. The following year, they fire half as many shots, get 3 times as many hits.
Interesting. 3
times many hits. No, they're not perfect. There's some bad ones. But the day the state of New York says you are negligent, they'll give anybody a gun and not give them this force-on-force, realistic, scenario-based training. The other thing that we can do that is a true revolution that we found out in 15 years of war is if it works in the Olympics, if it works in the Super Bowl, it works when somebody's trying to kill you. Now, this is huge. Prior to the war, there was a ban on sports psychology in the military. People say, all that stuff will get you killed when somebody's trying to kill you. Well, that was their theory, and they were wrong. After 15 years of war, we have learned that we can strip mine the multi-trillion-dollar field of performance psychology and sports psychology applied to the battlefield. Well, I tell my cops, you are your city's pro team, your county's pro team, your state's pro team. My feds, you are your nation's professional team. In a game where we lose, people die. Mm-hmm. And so I tell them that we embrace that dynamic of being professionals. The military calls them warrior athletes, and embrace that dynamic of being that athlete and training and preparing. So there are so many things we can be doing. NYPD's academy was always 40 hours of firearms training. That was my academy, 40 hours of firearms training. Today, the NYPD academy is 80 hours of firearms training. And the second 40-hour block is all simulation force-on-force scenarios. So there's so many great things happening out there in our world today. Believe in who you are, believe in what you do, and seek every training opportunity you can. Push that envelope, walk the warrior path, have your hobby reinforce your survival values, watch your sleep. Tired people make mistakes. We're not the person we want to be. We're not the cop we want to be. These are simple, straightforward things any one of us can do right now to get ourselves on that proper path with that proper mindset, with the skills and the tools to triumph at the moment of truth.
Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, thank you for being with us. I can't thank you enough on behalf of, I think, every cop in the country and that listens to us, of course, but all of us for the work you do for us, for advocating for us like you do, for putting us in that right mindset. Your class was so influential so many years ago, and I still think about those quotes, and I still use those quotes, and as a sergeant now, I teach those things to the newer guys, the guys who come on who haven't seen you yet. So anyone who's out there needs to come see you speak, and I'll put links in the show notes to your dates and where people can learn about you. You know, I'll admit I'm kind of a mushy guy. I can tear up at a good romantic comedy. My wife will tell you that. But
as you get older, it becomes even more so.
And so, but I remember being at your presentation, and it's one of I was so proud to be a cop when I heard you speak and how you were talking with us, and I even got a little misty-eyed back there. I think it was in Arcadia, outside LA, and it was such an influential moment for me. So to be able to talk to you and have this time with you today was such a gift. I thank you for that. I know that the listeners of this podcast are going to get a lot out of what you spoke of, and reinforce a lot of what they either know or they need to know. So thank you for your time today.
Hey, one last component.
Please.
Come up here. This is Gretel. Her birthday is her 1 year birthday is about 6 days away. She's less than a year old, but she is my favorite breed of sheepdog, the German Shepherd, right?
Yeah, beautiful.
And what we do is we take that old Shepherd, and the kids can pull his tail and poke his ribs, and he won't bite. The bad man shows up, and they're all fur and fangs.
Yeah,
that's our model: is to be the sheepdog, to go out and protect our flock. And when bad things happen, the sheepdog, they don't spend the rest of their life obsessing about it. When he gets a bad day, the next day starts all over again, And that's our model. That's where we're at, is to take that model and embrace it and to dedicate ourselves to a lifetime of service and production and protection of our civilization. So as you go forth, and I cannot honor you enough for the podcast, for the work you're doing, for being in the fight every day, as all the sheepdogs go forth, thanks for what you do. Believe in who you are. We have never needed you more than we need you now. So many pigeons are coming home to roost. It darkens the sky. Good. We'll fight in the shade. Thanks, brother.
Thank you, sir.
If you like what you heard today and you got something out of this conversation, please consider leaving a review on the podcast player of your choice. Second, share this episode or any other episode you loved with people you know who need to hear it. You can share episodes right from our webpage at thesquadroom.net and from most podcast players. If you heard something today you know a friend or loved one needs to hear, please tell them about the show. And you can email this episode even directly to them. If you want to know how you can support the show, there's a few ways to do that. If you head over to thesquadroom.net/support, you will see a few ways that you can help the show and save a few bucks. These are all what's known as affiliate links, so for any purchase you make there, the podcast receives some compensation. It's important to know that it doesn't change the price for you. The first, biggest, and easiest way to support the show is when you do your Amazon shopping. Before you head to Amazon to purchase anything, please go to thesquadroom.net/Amazon. Just click the Amazon button on that page and carry on with your shopping. Amazon will see that you came to them through our site, and it really helps support the show. There are also deals on there like 10% off Onnit supplements by going to onnit.com/squadroom, Ranger Up clothing, and Hardhead Veterans ballistic helmets. If you want to try out an audiobook, you can get a free month subscription to Audible and a free audiobook of your choice by going to audibletrial.com/thesquadroom. Again, that easy place to find all of these is at thesquadroom.net/support. Lastly, I want to thank our sponsors again, ProForce, so check them out at proforceonline.com. And until next time, take care of each other and stay safe.